problem now. My memory is no good. It's a big problem.
What should I do? My memory's also not so good.
It's not true. Tomorrow, I'll save it for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's okay.
You had a couple of really important sayings. Besides, of course, the Mishnah, which is really nice. He was wealthy, eh? His father was very, very rich.
One of the reasons they asked him.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was very wealthy.
It's one of the things that they want.
He didn't need to get a kickback for anything.
Exactly. It's one of the things that they
wealth
wanted,
ones.
that a Rav, a leader of a community, etc., should have his own wealth. That way he shouldn't be worried. And
What
if
do you
he's worried,
think?
then maybe.
Speaking about kickbacks, what do you think's going on there with Trump and with this guy? He called this guy in Georgia and threatened him. Is that unbelievable?
It's
Not for Trump.
By the way, there's so many things that I appreciate that he did, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I always said throughout, and this is my opinion, it's not Moshe Messina, it's not Torah, but I always said the person is a terrible guy. Okay, so he did some good stuff, and kol hakavod, and he should get rewarded for the good stuff, etc. The person is a grabber, like a grabber mensch in Yiddish we say, a grabber mensch, and
a prosta mensch.
A prosta, exactly. And he's really showing. First of all, if he wasn't so prost, he would have won the election. That's first of all. People voted against it because they were disgusted by him. That's first of all. Because it was so close that he could have won if he would have just been a little bit of a mensch. But the second thing is that whatever you could have said until now he's showing his truth. He's showing exactly who he is. Take it like a man and move along, like everybody else does when something happens they don't like. Anyways.
My brother is afraid. My brother has dual citizenship. My brother,
right,
and lives in Boston. He's afraid that they might have martial law. He might call martial law to. Because he thinks there are going to be some protests now. He's trying to incite, my brother says, people to go out and protest.
Yeah, but I don't think it will work. He has a very, very small support right now. Anyways, who knows? We're going to start over here.
Yeah.
There's somebody. Lily.
Yeah, Lily's here. She's been here. Okay, I muted everybody. Chapter 24. Oh, 1 second. Someone else is here. Oh, Mary just made it just in time, just about to start.
All right.
There you go. Welcome. I'm going to mute everybody. Okay. Chapter 24, Kapitel Chav Daled. Moving along. This kapitel is a special kapitel. It's a special chapter. If it looks familiar, it's familiar because every Sunday that we would have a minyan and breakfast afterwards in the Chabad before COVID. Mirz Hashem will come back soon, but every Sunday when we would say Shir Shal Yom, the song of the day that the Levites would sing in the Holy Temple. So this is the Shir Shal Yom for Yom Rishon. This is the Kapitel Tehillim that we say on every single Sunday in davening. Okay, we say it in davening. The Leviim, the Levites would sing it in the Holy Temple. This was the kapitel for Sunday. That's first of all. Second is that this kapitel is a very important kapitel that's part of the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur service. Some only do for Rosh Hashanah, but it's for us Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Some even have the custom. So this is by night. We say it Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur by night, both nights of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur by night. At the end of Ma'ariv, before Aleinu, we say this kapitel Tehillim, and the Chazan could say it verse by verse, and everybody repeats it. There's different ways it's done. And by some, they have the custom of even opening up the Ark for this kapitel Tehillim. That's how important it is that we open up the Aron Kodesh for this chapter when we say it on Rosh Hashanah. And it's connected with Ashiris, with wealth. It's one of we don't sell these kinds of things in Chabad, and I know in Beth Tikva as well they don't sell, but in Or Shalom they sell. By the Sfardim here in Dollar they sell the different mitzvahs when it comes to the high holidays. And it's one, if I'm not mistaken, I heard that this is one of the most valuable times that someone wants to open up the ark, and it goes for the most money in when they sell the different mitzvahs for Rosh Hashanah. Opening up the ark for the David Mizmar for this chapter of Tehillim that says at the end of Ma'ariv, by night of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it goes for the most money. It's connected with wealth and ashiris, etc. So that's it. So again, if it looks familiar, it's because it's something that we're connected with. It's something that we say at least once a week in davening, and also on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. At least by us, we say it with a very specific tune. I'm sure in all shuls it's done with a very specific tune. So that's this kapitel, this uniqueness of chapter 24. By the way, just to give you a heads up, next week's chapter is also very familiar, something that we say every single day if we say Tachnun. And if we say Tachnun, we say it actually twice a day. We say it in Shacharis and in Mincha, and that's chapter 25, next week's chapter. Just a heads up. So this chapter over here, what we're talking about the ultimate purpose of creation. What's the ultimate purpose of creation is Hashem, king over the universe. And that's actually why we say it on Rosh Hashanah during davening, because we're talking about what are we doing on Rosh Hashanah? Why are we in Shul? What are we even trying to do? We're trying to crown Hashem as king again for another year over the universe. That's the idea of Rosh Hashanah. That's to be mamlich, to crown Hashem again as king. That's why we blow the shofar. That's why we come to Shul. HaMelech, Hashem the king. So, and this pasuk mentions many times about the kingship of Hashem and Hashem's rulership over the world. And that's why we say it on Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to go, as we usually do, through the verses, through the psukim once with a basic translation, and then we'll go through it again with a little bit more detail. So LeDavid Mizbar, for David or by David, a psalm. LaHashem ha'aretz, to Hashem is the land, Umeloya, and everything that it encompasses. It's everything that's in it, everything that it's male of, everything that's in it. Tevel v'yoyish veva, and also the world and those who dwell in it. Kihu al yamim yesada. Yes, we're going to get to it. Kihu al yamim yesada, because Hashem has put earth al yamim onto the waters, al nahares, and onto the rivers. Yechainaneha, established it, put it there. Miyale bahar Hashem, who will go up onto the mountain of God, umiyokum, and who will stand up b'mkayim kadshai, in his place of holiness. Niki chapayim uvar levov, those who have clean hands. Okay, so that's the first thing. We're going to explain it better soon. And bar levov, a pure heart. Asher lo yidnasa l'ashav nafshi, that has not said my name in vain. V'lo nishba lemirma, and did not swear or promise something and did not falsely, and didn't have an intention to keep to the promise. Yisa bracha, so he will get a blessing, meis Hashem, from Hashem, utzedakah, and righteousness from Melikei Yishai, from the God of his salvation. Zed der dershav, this is the generation that seek him. Mevakshe fonecha, they seek his countenance, seek his face. Yaakov, Selah. Why is it mentioned Yaakov here? So I have a beautiful explanation that we're going to mention soon. Se'u she'arim rashechem, lift up your heads, the gates should lift up its head. Vihinasu pischei olam, and lift up the doors of the world, or the eternal doors. V'yavai, and let come Melech HaKavod, or V'yavai, and will come Melech HaKavod, the king of honor, the glorious king, the king of honor. So who is Mizeh Melech HaKavod? The next pasuk asks, who is this king of honor? Hashem, it's talking about Hashem. Izuz V'gibar, Hashem, the strong and the mighty, and Hashem, Gibar Melchama, Hashem, the strong one in war. Se'u she'arim rashechem, again repeating, lift up your heads of the gates. Use'u pischei olam, and open up these eternal doors. V'yavei melech hakavod, and this king of glory will come, the king of honor will come. And who is this? Miuza Melech HaKaved. Who is this king of honor? Hashem Tzvaka is the Lord of hosts, Hashem of the hosts. Who Melech HaKaved Selah? He is the glorious king. He is the king of honor. Selah, which usually we translate it something that will last forever. So there you have it.
You say in Hallel, eh?
What?
Susha'arim, we say in Hallel too.
We
Hallel. Mm-hmm.
Not that I recall.
Susha'arim Rashechem?
No, not that I recall.
Mm-hmm.
Hallel is verses of Tehillim, but from a different part of Tehillim, which we'll get to in maybe 3 years from now. It's a whole section in Tehillim. Hallel is a section in Tehillim, and it's directly from Tehillim. Okay, so as we mentioned before, over here, what we're talking about is the ultimate purpose of creation. The purpose of creation is Hashem's kingship and rulership over the world, and how we see that it's Hashem's kingship and rulership over the world. This kapitel also talks about the qualities that we need in a person to go up on Har Hashem, onto the mountain of God, right? That's what we're talking about. And also the psukim, as an introduction, some of these psukim, or maybe this whole chapter, was used and said, this is the way Rashi explains it, and others, that this chapter was used and said when they originally brought in the Aron, the Ark, into the Holy of Holies for the first time, into the Beis HaMikdash. So they used these psukim, whether it's the whole chapter or just the psukim from Se'u Sha'arim Rasheichem. That's all, which we're going to explain when we get closer to that. So with that, we're going to start again from the beginning, chapter 24, pasuk number 1, L'David Mizmar. We talked about it last week, that there's Mizmar L'David and then there's L'David Mizmar. So last week when it said Mizmar first, Mizmar L'David, a psalm for David. So first he had a psalm, he sang a psalm, and that brought him to a certain level of spirituality, to his divine connection. And when it says L'David Mizmar, is that the inspiration came first, and through the inspiration, he came up with a psalm, and that's what we're talking about over here. There's a lot less of L'David Mizmar than there is Mizmar L'David, and it's a unique thing that there was an inspiration that came to him that he brought it into a Mizmar, into a psalm. So first of all, L'Hashem Aretz U'Malaya, that everything belongs to Hashem. This is a very important thing that we're talking about over here. And Meir already reminded me that this is something. These 3 words, La Hashem, Haaretz, U'Malaya. There's a custom that we write on our svarim, on our books. We shouldn't just write that this belongs to me. Don't write on a sefer that this belongs to me. We don't do that. We could write our name, but we don't write it belongs to so and so. So it belongs to Hashem. It doesn't belong to me. So actually, some have the custom of writing. And in Chabad we do this. La Hashem Haaretz U'Malaya. Everything belongs to Hashem. Label fine. Meaning that if you need to find who is using this book, that's me. But really, who does it belong to? It belongs to Hashem. Nothing belongs to me. And this is what La Hashem, to Hashem, Haaretz U'Malaya. Everything in the world belongs to Hashem. The world and everything in it belongs to Hashem. So this is something that we have from this pasuk. That is used in actuality, in a practical way, to use this verse in a practical way. Now, the Radak says, even though that everything belongs to Hashem, L'Hashem Haaretz U'Malaya, but then we're going to go to Miyale Bar Hashem, right? A few psukim later, we're going to talk about who goes on to Hashem's mountain, meaning that even though everything belongs to Hashem, there's something unique and special, a connection from Hashem to the Har HaBayis, to the mountain of Hashem. And that is where he's going, that it's a preparation to get to Miyale Bar Hashem. First of all, you should know everything belongs to Hashem. But there's something unique in it, something unique and something special and something more divine and more spiritual and more holy about Har Hashem. And over there, only Miyale Bar Hashem. Not everybody gets the opportunity to go up Bar Hashem onto the mountain of Hashem. So there's Aretz, Malaya, Tevel, and Yashveva. There's 4 things over here. So what's Aretz mean? So L'Hashem, to Hashem is the Aretz. So today in modern Hebrew, whenever we say Aretz, what do we mean? We mean the land of Israel. So actually, that's what Rashi says over here. That when it says Haaretz, it's referring to the land of Israel. And when it says Tevel, it's referring to the rest of the world. That's the way Rashi learns this pasuk, that Haaretz is talking about the land of Israel. and then in Maloya, everything within it, and Tevel is the rest of the world, and Yeshviva is talking about all its inhabitants, all human beings, everything that all the inhabitants of the world. That's the way Rashi learns it. Others say that Aretz is talking about the world, the land, not necessarily inhabited land. Lashem haaretz, the land, everything belongs to Hashem. The whole earth, the land belongs to Hashem. That's the way most other commentaries learn it. Maloya, again, is the whole world, everything that's all this stuff, right? All the things that fill the world. We're not talking about human beings, and we're not talking about land. We're talking about things that fill the world, and that's Maloya. Most commentaries say that's what Maloya means. Though the Al-Sheikh comes and says that that Maloya is talking about spiritual beings that don't have bodies. Right? We know that there are different spiritual, divine types of beings that the world is full of, that we don't have the eyes that can see them. We don't have the refinement to be able to access and to see them or to feel them or to know of their existence. There are some tzaddikim that are able to be in tune with them, but we don't. But Maloya, the world is full of them. So the Al-Sheikh says, when it says Maloya, it's talking about all these spirits and spiritual things that don't have bodies that the world is full of. Okay, so that's Maloya. Tevel. So again, Rashi says that it's everything besides Eretz Yisrael. But all the other commentaries that say that Aretz is talking about land, it's not necessarily inhabited land. Tevel is the inhabited land, right? How much percentage of the world is actually inhabited? Not everything's inhabited, right? There's loads and loads of place that is not inhabited, and that is Aretz, land. And then there's Tevel, which is inhabited land. And most commentaries say that that's the way it is. Tevel is the inhabited land, and it goes very well into Yeshviva and the inhabitants that inhabit the inhabited land. Right? So that's the simple way to understand it. So Lashem Haaretz, Hashem is the whole world, the whole land of Maloya, everything that is included in it, physically and spiritually, I guess. Tevel, inhabited land, and Yeshviva, those who inhabit the land. So that is the thing, the first thing. The Al-Sheikh, though, the Al-Sheikh in general takes things a little bit more on a spiritual level. And the Al-Sheikh over here comes and says that this whole chapter is coming to tell us about Hashem's divine presence, that Hashem is in everything that goes on. Hashem haaretz, Hashem is involved in the land. You might think, we talked about this many times over, about divine personal providence, right? So you might think that Hashem created the world, but Hashem is so great, he has to deal with all the little details that are going on here in this world. That's what Hashem is busy with. Adrabah, that Hashem is so great that he could be and wants to be involved in every little detail that goes on here in this world, and that's the way the Al-Sheikh comes and explains this kapitel of Tehillim. Now, there's a famous Gemara that Philip would remember, David you might remember too, a Gemara in Gemara Brachas, and the Gemara in Gemara Brachas brings this first pasuk, Lashem Haaretz Maloya, that everything belongs to Hashem. And the Gemara there says, how do we reconcile this pasuk? Right? You guys remember, how do we reconcile this pasuk with the pasuk that says in the Torah, Shamayim, not in the Torah, sorry. This is also in Tehillim, right? Shamayim, Shamayim, Lashem. That's in Hallel, exactly. Shamayim, Shamayim, Lashem, Va'aretz, Nasan, Livnei Adam. That the heavens, Shamayim, Lashem, that's the heavens belong to God. And Va'aretz, Nasan Livnei Adam, and the land he gave to people, which says the opposite of what our pasuk says. Our pasuk says that Haaretz is La Hashem, right? La Hashem Haaretz. The Haaretz belongs to Hashem, but the other pasuk, which is in much later, in chapter 140 something, not 140 something, in the teens, in the 100 teens of Tehillim, over there he says that there's a separation. There's Shamayim and there's Aretz, and you do whatever you want in the Aretz, so to speak. It could seem that that's what it means, and that's a question that the Gemara asks, but the Gemara is not alone in that question. We learned it together in Gemara Brachas, but it's also a question that's brought down in the Medrash. What does the Medrash answer? So the Medrash brings a differentiation, and this connects well with the Sikha that we learned this morning. The Medrash brings differentiation of pre-Sinai and post-Sinai. That before Har Sinai, before the giving of the Torah, so then Hashem stayed up there in the heavens. And then after Har Sinai, after Hashem gave the Torah, what happened at Har Sinai? Hashem came down on the mountain. Spirituality. God came down into a physical world, something that didn't happen before. And since Chet Eitzadas, since the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge. So now Hashem comes down onto the mountain and brings spirituality into this world. It changes everything. Now it's no more Hashemayim, Shemayim Lashem, and Aretz Livnei Adam. No, Lashem Haaretz Umlaya. Everything in the world is Hashem, and that is the way the Medrash answers this question. The Gemara comes and gives us an answer that's so powerful, so amazing. What does the Gemara come and say? It says one case is talking about pre-bracha, and the other one is talking about post-bracha. If you're going to recognize Hashem's governance, then you're allowed to eat. Then you're allowed to enjoy. If you recognize Hashem being involved in everything that goes on here in this world, then you have the right. So what does it mean? How do we recognize it? By making a bracha. So whether it's making a bracha on a fruit or a vegetable or a piece of food, or a bracha because of seeing something, one of the wonders of the world, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Whatever it is, if you want to enjoy, we should first recognize that it comes from Hashem. And that's what the Gemara says. And that's how the Gemara answers that there's 2 psukim that might be saying opposite things. One is talking about if you make a bracha, and one is talking about if you don't make a bracha. If you make a bracha, adrabah, enjoy, because you recognize that Hashem controls things that go on here in this world. If you don't make a bracha, then you don't have any connection to anything. You don't have the right to anything in Hashem's world. And that's the way the Gemara answers this question. So again, Hashem Aretz Umlaya, everything in this world belongs to Hashem. Once we recognize that, and once we feel that, and once we give that to Hashem, so to speak. And how do we do that? Through making a bracha. As we learned at length, many different interesting brachas throughout Gemara brachas. So then we could enjoy his things here in this world. That's pasuk Aleph, pasuk number 1. Pasuk Beis. So kihu al yam yisada. So first of all, Rashi continues according to the way he learns that Aretz is talking about Eretz Yisrael, about the land of Israel. So he continues and he says, what's this idea of the land being by the water, etc.? So Rashi says, it's talking about Eretz Yisrael, and therefore it's talking that the fact that Eretz Yisrael is surrounded by 7 seas and 4 rivers, and the Medrash mentions this as well. Rashi takes this from the Medrash and it discusses exactly, if I remember correctly, Radak as well, exactly which 7 seas and 4 rivers, there's names for each one of them, that Israel, the land of Israel, the biblical land of Israel is surrounded by. And that's Kihu al Yamim Yisada, that you put the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, by the water. Okay? The Radak also says that there's something unique. When Hashem created the world in a way that everybody's close to water. You mentioned something that you can't go 18 days of walking without water or something like that. But the idea of being close to water, civilization is always close to water. You always see a city. So where is it? Back in the day, today, Baruch Hashem, you can schlep water. You can do back in the where civilization was always next to a water source. If you weren't next to a water source, you're in big trouble. So that is the idea of Kiyu al Yam Yisada. The Mitzudas and the Alshich, who's coming here to tell us that this capital is trying to bring out the idea how Hashem runs the world and Hashem is involved in everything that goes on in the world. So the Mitzudas and the Alshich both talk about the fact that when Hashem created the world, there's earth that's by the water. But not only is there earth by the water, there's water running under the earth. Why doesn't the earth fall down? Okay, so we could give a scientific answer, or we could give a Jewish answer. And Hashem did it specifically, and we have to give thanks to Hashem for doing it that way. And that's Kihu al Yamim Yisada, that Hashem puts the land al Yamim on water, and it stays there. We have to thank Hashem for that. And as the Alshich continues, that it's another proof that Hashem runs the world, created the world, and runs the world. Pasuk number 3. So now we get into where he's going. Miyalev Ar Hashem. Who's going to have the opportunity? Who's lucky enough? Who is the person who's refined enough that will go up on Hashem's mountain? and will stand up b'makim kadshai, in his holy place. So first of all, at the end of last week's kapitel, at the end of last kapitel, chapter 23, David Melech says, he ends off that only goodness and kindness should run after me. But what does he want? What does he want? He wants to sit in the house of Hashem, in the house of the Lord, forever. That's what he wants. So here, it's like a continuation of that. Miyala bar Hashem. This is what David Melech wants. But who gets that opportunity to sit, to go up onto Hashem's mountain? That's what he's asking, right? Not everybody's going to merit this. Oh, who does merit it? That we're going to get into next pasuk of Niki Kapayim of our Levov, gives very specific parameters of who's going to be lucky enough to go up onto Hashem's mountain. Right? It's a holy place. It's not just for anybody. Only special people are able to go there. The Me'am Loyes comes here and says that this is an analogy of our divine service. Our divine service is like going up a mountain. We talked about this many times. I've told you the story of the group of students that came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and they asked, like as a joke, they were trying to chepe a little bit, they asked the Rebbe if they're good Jews. And the Rebbe said, you came here to meet with a rabbi instead of doing anything else you could have done in New York City. So you did a mitzvah, you did a good thing. So you're going in the right direction. Continue in this direction and you're a good Jew. Meaning the definition of a good Jew is someone that's going in the right direction. And the Rebbe gave an analogy of a ladder, right? Everybody's on a different rung of the ladder. The question isn't which rung you're on. The question is if you're going up or are you slipping. Nobody could stay stagnant on one rung. Everybody is moving, and the goal is the ultimate. What's a good Jew? A good Jew is that doesn't matter what rung he is on, but he's going forward. He's taking a step forward. If someone's on the top rung and slipping down, he's not in a good place. Someone's on the bottom rung, but he's moving upwards. Oh, that person is a good place. So that is the idea. And Me'am Loyes brings it as another analogy from a different perspective from the mountain, because that's what it says in the pasuk. Miyala bar Hashem, who gets the opportunity to grow in their divine service, who gets the opportunity to go up into the mountain of spirituality, into the mountain of God. Right? So how does that happen? So he says, just like when you climb a regular mountain, there's many things that could hold you back. There's weights. The clothing that you're wearing could hold you back. The food that you ate could hold you back, right? If you're a grubba person, so that will hold you back. And the same thing is in spirituality, right? If you're very into your food, you're not gonna have an easy time going up the mountain. If you're very into your food, you're also not gonna have an easy time in your spiritual pursuits. If it's all about making the bracha on the food, then you'll have an easy time in your spiritual pursuits going up the mountain. So that's what Me'am Loyes says. This pasuk is an analogy of our divine service, and the Friedrich Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, mentions that this idea that we mentioned before, that nobody could stay stagnant. If everybody's somewhere else on the mountain, but it's impossible. A mountain climber knows that he doesn't stay in one place. When he's climbing, he has to find flat ground in order to camp out. You don't camp out while you're climbing, right? You don't pause while you're climbing. While you're climbing, you got to move forward, because if you're not moving forward, you are slipping. And the same thing is in our Yiddishkeit, the same thing is in our religious pursuits, in our spiritual pursuits, that we should always make sure that we're climbing. Because if we're not climbing, chas v'shalom, we are slipping. The goal is not the peak of the mountain. There's very few that could even imagine about getting there. That's not our goal. I mean, it's a lofty goal, and we should even maybe once in a while think about it. That's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to keep on climbing. There's always more to climb. And the same thing is with our learning of Torah. The more you learn, people think that it's a funny joke. The more you learn, the more you realize that you have more to learn. It's a serious thing, because as soon as you open up another sefer, you realize, wow, there's so much more. And every time I get a new sefer on Tehillim and I start opening up and I see different commentaries, different things, it's like it's so amazing. We have the other class on Tuesday night. We have the Pirkei Avos class. We went through Pirkei Avos already once. And we thought we did it once. No, there's so much more to talk about on Pirkei Avos, and so much more. There's always more to learn, and there's always more to grow. And if we're not learning and growing, so then we're slipping. And that's miyala bar Hashem. In order to grow in our spirituality, we have to be going up the mountain in our service of Hashem. Pasuk number 4. So who gets this opportunity? Who grows in their spiritual pursuits? Who gets the opportunity to go Bahar Hashem onto the mountain of Hashem, onto the Har HaBayis? And some say that David HaMelech was saying this on Har HaBayis when he realized by divine revelation that this is the place where the Beis HaMikdash should be built. So he said this kapitel, said this chapter. So the Radak says that over here it talks about 3 things. There's Neki Kapayim, Bar Levov, and then Asher Lo Nasa, and about Shav and Mirma, which is both the same thing, about saying about untruths and trickery, which comes from the same source. So the Radak says it's talking about 3 different qualities in a person, connected with 3 different kinds of ways of expression. There's Maisa, action, Dibur, speech, and Machshava, thoughts. A person who's this person that's going to be able to go up onto the mountain of Hashem has to be good in action, thought, speech, and action, in his Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa. That's the idea over here, right? Neki Kapayim, he has to have clean hands. What's hands? Hands is all about action. So he has to have clean action. Bar Levov, a clear heart, a pure heart. Bar Levov. So what's the heart? Heart is connected to Machshava, to thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then Asher Lo Nasal, Ashav Nafshi, this idea of saying an untruth or trickery. So this is something about speaking. And what's the worst thing a person could use his mouth for, so to speak? One of the worst things is a false swearing. And that's why when it talks about dibur, when it talks about speech, it brings up this idea of speaking falsely, of false swearing. So there's other commentaries over here. Let me finish the pasuk. There's other commentaries over here as well that talk about the Metzudah says that it's talking about someone that has his hands that his hands are should be clean of shady money. That's another way. That clean of shady money. His heart should be pure. That's from the Yetzer Hara, right? It says that the Yetzer Hara stays is in the left what's it called, of the heart. So someone that is able to get rid of his Yetzer Hara, and that the idea of being in awe of heaven, fear of heaven, that is the third thing that is mentioned here in this pasuk, and that's the way the Metzudas learns it.
Sounds like a
Amlayas mentions over here. Amlayas says over here, number 1, that it's talking about someone that a person, in order to be able to go onto the mountain of Hashem, he shouldn't lust after money. That's one thing. One second, I mixed something up over here. 1 second. I'll just finish off this pasuk with one. There's 2 parts at the end of the pasuk. It says Lo Nasal Lashav Nafshi, Lo Yinishba Lemirma. That first of all, he didn't carry my name in vain. So it's a form of speech. But he didn't. But what's Hashem's name in vain? It's usually connected with an oath, with a promise. And Lo Yinishba Lemirma, and didn't swear in trickery. So what's the 2 ideas? So the Avitz comes over here and says that it's talking about a person that Lo Nasa is talking in past tense, that he didn't swear and not come through with his promise in something in the past, and also in something in the future, that it's also a future promise that he won't make a future promise. And those are the 2 things. Yeah, there was a few questions over here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I should ask. Should I ask my question?
Yes.
I have actually 2 questions. The first one, we already came to this place, so maybe the other one will still wait. So it says, Neki Kapayim Muvar Levav Asher Lo Nasa Lashav Nafshi. Why does it say Nafshi? It should say Nafsha. Because everywhere else, Zeh Dor Dor Shav. Mevakshe Panecha. Everything is talking about Hashem, who has not taken my name in vain. I was thinking it kind of sounds better. Don't take my name in vain. It's like Hashem. You're quoting Hashem. He's saying, don't take. What does it say in the Ten Commandments? Does it say, don't take my name in vain? Or you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Really, grammatically, it should continue. Who will stand in the place of His holiness? Everything is of who will ascend the mountain of Hashem, of His holiness, His mountain, the one who has not taken His name in vain and has not sworn falsely. And then it agrees, because then it goes on and says, such is the generation of those who seek Him. Not of those who seek me. He's not speaking Hashem. He's not speaking. It's David who's speaking about Hashem.
Right.
But there's got to be a reason, though. I'm sure
every commentary brings it up and gives another complicated answer for it. But
they mention it.
Huh? Yeah.
They mention it.
Yeah. And Rashi basically says that nafshi is referring back to the person who's saying this. But
it can't be. Can't be David who's saying. It can't be David who has not taken my name in vain. He can't be talking about himself.
The euphemism of the person talking, the person that is referring to, nafshi, right? Like nasa lashav nafshi, the person that he's talking about, his soul, nafshi, but as he's talking in first person. Yeah, the third person talking in first person over here. But you're right. That's the way Rashi. There's others. There's many other comments. I looked quickly, but because I remembered that it was in there. But the Radak and
there's one other thing. I think we're just going to come to it now, but I'll just mention it so I won't disturb you later. Zed dor shav mevakshe panecha. Why zed dor shav?
Okay, we know that's way ahead. That's a few psukim ahead.
Okay, I'm only wondering why it's not in the plural. Such are the generations of those who seek Him.
Right. Okay, we'll get it.
Okay, that's it. Those are my two questions.
Okay. Lily, you had a question?
They're talking. Yeah, well, I don't understand. Well, I do understand. Who's going to descend? Who's going to ascend to Hashem's mountain? It's only a tzaddik we're talking about. Who else could it be but a tzaddik?
Right.
That can go up there.
Right. Okay, we're talking about the highest level of connection to Hashem, and yes, we're talking that this is a level of a tzaddik that's going to get to such a level. Okay, let's get back into it. Pasuk number 5, Yisa bracha meis Hashem. So someone who has all these positive character traits that we just mentioned, what's he going to get? He's going to get a bracha. Not only is he going to be able to go Bahar Hashem, but he will also get a bracha from Hashem. Yisa bracha meis Hashem. Utzdaka, and righteousness from Hashem, his deliverer, his salvation, etc. So someone who has these character traits, not only can he go into the Beis HaMikdash, but he also merit from all these brachas from Hashem. Pasuk number 6. Zed der dershav. So here, this is in general this capital. Some capitals are much more. They flow better in Hebrew, so to speak. In the languages, it flows a lot better. And this is one of those that were definitely written more poetic, so to speak, as you could see, right? So whether your question about nafshi, but in general, even kihu al yamim yasadav al naris that you make the world on water. It's poetic already, right? So this is much more one of those that are more poetic than straightforward. So here we get to another pasuk like that. So zed der dershav. This is the generation. So the simple pshat is, this is the generation. David HaMelech is talking about this is the generation. He's talking about how righteous his generation is. Zed der dershav. They run after. They are deirish. They go and they seek after Hashem. That's what they're doing. This is the generation that seeks after Hashem. Right, and that's the simple way. There's other commentaries that say that a generation that acts like this, so those are zeder, meaning we just talked about a very high, lofty level. So if you have people that act like this, a generation that act like this, they're going to merit to go into the Beis HaMikdash. We're talking about David HaMelech saying this before the Beis HaMikdash was built. So a generation that acts like this, zeder, a generation like this, they'll have the opportunity to build and go into the Beis HaMikdash. It's interesting. The Mamleis has a commentary that says that a generation that seeks a tzaddik that's like this. Right? Lily, as you mentioned, this is a very lofty level. Who's going to be able to do this? Yechidei Skula, very unique people. There are some people that are going to be able to do it, but what? 1 in generation, 36 in a generation will be able to accomplish what it says in this pasuk over here. So what does it mean? But the generation that are Dairish, that seek out those tzaddikim, that want to be connected with someone that is of that spiritual stature. Oh, those are the ones that are going to merit. Right, so it's not it's a community thing. It's not something that, oh, if either I'm gonna be Bahar Hashem or forget it, I have no choice. No, I'm gonna seek out the tzaddik that is Bahar Hashem, that has that direct connection, so to speak, with Hashem. And it's a beautiful way to learn it. Zeder, that is Dairish, that goes and seeks out the tzaddik that is, of the previous pasuk, and that is a unique generation. That is a generation that is worthy. So then it says, they seek out Hashem's countenance. Yaakov, so Yaakov. I mentioned the pasuk. All of a sudden it says the name Yaakov. And Selah, okay, Selah, we talked about the idea of forever. So such a generation, they'll be able to be in the Beis Hamikdash forever, maybe, or something like that. But where does the word Yaakov come in? So over here in the translation that I have in front of me, it says that it's talking about the children of Jacob, which means the Jewish people. Okay, that's probably the basic pshat. That's probably a simple pshat. I saw a beautiful pshat in the Alshich. I love it. And he says like this. He says, why mention Yaakov? So he says, first of all, we have 2 temples that were built. The first temple is connected to Avraham Avinu. The second temple is connected to Yitzchak. And the third temple that will be, and we're going to talk about the first and third another time, again, as we get closer to the end of the chapter. So that's why it comes in very nicely. The third and final Beis Hamikdash that's going to be rebuilt when Mashiach comes is connected to Yaakov. And that's what he's saying. It says, Zeder, the Alshich says that David HaMelech is crying out to Hashem. Zeder, this generation, all they want is connect with you. Yaakov, let it be already the third temple, Selah, that will be forever. That's a beautiful pshat in the pasuk. Not a simple pshat, but it's a beautiful pshat in the pasuk. That he's asking that it should be already Yaakov version of the Beis Hamikdash, not the Avram version that, as we know, got destroyed. And then there was a second version that got destroyed. And then we're waiting for the third Beis Hamikdash that's going to come and it's going to be there forever. The Yaakov version of it. He says, Zeder, this generation, they want you. Why give them something that's going to be destroyed? Give them already the level of Yaakov, the level 3 of Beis Hamikdash, and that Selah, it should last forever. So another way to learn this pasuk as well. Okay, so now the rest, there's 4 psukim left, 7, 8, 9, and 10. There's 2 psukim, and then they're almost exactly the same, repeated. 2 psukim, and then there's almost the same 2 psukim repeated again. And so first of all, it's talking about gates. So as an introduction, Rashi says that when Shlomo Melech came to, when the Beis Hamikdash was built, and King Shlomo came in with the Aron and he wanted to put it in, they had the Aron already. They had it from the Mishkan, right? And they wanted to put it into the Kodesh Kodashim. The gates, the doors were sealed shut and they wouldn't open. And Rashi says they sang 24 or 34, I don't remember now, 24 prayers, 24 songs, 24 requests for the doors to open, and they wouldn't open until they said something that reminded of it says Al Tashiv Pnei Mashichecha, and it remembered about David HaMelech, and then it opened. And this is the idea of Su'u Sha'arim Rashechem, open up your doors and let in Melech HaKaved. So according to some, Melech HaKaved, the king of Kaved, is referring to the Aron over here, not referring necessarily to Hashem, is referring to the Aron. There's others that say that it's referring to Hashem. And Pischei, and what we're asking, they're asking to open up Pischei Olam, the doors Olam of the world. No, forever. The doors that have a certain level of spirituality, meaning they're part of the Beis Hamikdash, and they will be around forever. So that's the idea. So Su'ur Sharm Sheikhin is asking for those doors to open, to let in the Melech HaKaved, whether we're talking about the Aron or we're talking about Hashem, that Hashem's glory should be able to come into the Beis Hamikdash. But the next pasuk, so pasuk number 8 says, Miza Melech HaKavod. Who's this Melech HaKavod that we're talking about, right? Since you just mentioned to let in Melech HaKavod, he's asking, who is this Melech HaKavod, right? So, and that's what he's coming to explain in pasuk 8. And he says, this Melech HaKavod is Hashem, God. So if you're going to learn it to be Hashem, so Hashem is a warrior for the Jewish people, help the Jewish people win many wars. So that's one way you could learn it, or you could learn it as being the Aron. And as Radak mentions over here, when the Jewish people went out to war, they took the Aron with them. So that is Hashem Izos V'Gibur. That's why it's using adjectives of war, of power, of strength, etc. Why? Because the Aron represented that, because they won wars because of the Aron. The Aron went out on the front lines. So that's the way that Radak learns it, and it seems that's the Pashut Pshat over here. That's talking about the Aron, that the idea of strength and war that the Aron did on the Jewish people's behalf. So that's pasuk 7 and 8. And then we get back to pasuk number 9, and we say again, open up your doors. And the Yaveh Melech HaKavod, pasuk number 9, Su Sharm Rasheichem, is exactly the same. And in pasuk 7 it says Vihinasu, and here it says Usa'u, right? So Vihinasu or Usa'u is the only difference, the only one word that is different, which we're going to close the class with one idea of why they're different. So, but it's the same thing. Why is it repeated again? So the Metzudas comes and says, and many other commentaries as well, say that the first time it says it is talking about the first Beis Hamikdash, and the second time it says it with pasuk number 9 and number 10 is referring to the third Beis Hamikdash, to the Beis Hamikdash that's going to be rebuilt when Mashiach comes. What happened to the second Beis Hamikdash? So as we know, the Shechina didn't dwell in the second Beis Hamikdash like it did in the first Beis Hamikdash, or like it will in the third Beis Hamikdash, and it was missing some key elements in the Beis Hamikdash, in the second Beis Hamikdash, and therefore it skipped over here. And that's the way the commentaries explain it. And the third Beis Hamikdash also explains the unique differences over here. As pasuk 10 says, who's this Melech HaKavod? So now in the third Beis Hamikdash is going to come Melech HaKavod. Who's this Melech HaKavod? Hashem Tzavakes. Hashem, the Lord of the hosts. So it's referring to Hashem being Lord above and below, not just Aretz, Shamayim, everywhere. That's Hashem Tzavakes. And he is Melech HaKavod Selah. He is that Melech HaKavod Selah forever. Why doesn't it mention again about the strength and the wars that we mentioned in pasuk number 8? Why doesn't he mention it again in pasuk number 10? And the Radak comes and explains. He says that since the Aron was in the Beis Hamikdash, once it went to the Beis Hamikdash, it never went out. Once it went into the Beis Hamikdash, it didn't go out anymore for war. So it was used for war before the Beis Hamikdash, but once it went into the Beis Hamikdash, it was not taken out for war. So therefore, when we're talking about a future Beis Hamikdash, we don't talk about the Aron in the form of strength or wars, because it wouldn't go out for wars. Now, just to finish off the class, it says Su'u Sharim Rasheichem twice, right? And the first one is talking about the first temple, and then the second one is talking about the third temple. So I saw a beautiful commentary that says that the first time it says Su'u Sharim Rasheichem V'hinasu. Su'u Sharim Rasheichem, open up, lift up your heads, O gates, lift up your heads. V'hinasu, and let us lift. Right? V'hinasu, it's something that's going to come from below. We're going to lift something up. And that's the idea of the first Beis Hamikdash. The first Beis Hamikdash came from below. The inspiration came from below. The work came from below. David HaMelech went and fought wars for the Jewish people to have the land of Israel, and then made sure to have everything set in place. That way his son Shlomo HaMelech should be able to build the temple. And it was built from below. The third Beis Hamikdash, over there it says Susham Rasheichem Usa'u, and it will just lift up on its own. In the future, Hashem will be revealed, and therefore everything's going to be inspired from above. It's not going to be an inspiration from below. It's going to be an inspiration from above, and that's the idea of Mashiach, when spirituality and divinity and the divine of the world will be seen, not just known about, not just talked about, but something that you'll be able to see, something you'll be able to understand. And that's Ummah La'aretz De'es Hashem, that the world will be filled with the knowledge of God, kamayim layam machasim, as the Rambam writes, and that is the definition of the time of Mashiach, when spirituality will be the norm, something that we'll be able to understand, and that's usu'u, that Hashem, through the inspiration of the divine inspiration from above, that's going to bring the third temple. And then with that, we finish Kapitel Chav Daled, chapter 24. And the Mirz Hashem, looking forward next week to Kapitel Chav Hey, chapter 25.
Very
As we mentioned
beautiful.
before, should look familiar because we say it twice a day when we say Tachlis.